back in jail to await further proceedings, and I'll walk you through what that's going to look like in just a minute. He has already been charged with one count of simple escape on June 30th, along with the other 9 defendants. He will be arraigned on those charges as soon as we get him back from Georgia. He will be taken to Angola, where we have continued to keep all of the other escapees at this time. Tomorrow, he'll see a magistrate judge in Georgia, where he will be able to waive extradition if he chooses to do so. If he doesn't choose to do so, then we will initiate extradition proceedings and eventually remove him back here to Louisiana, and the proceedings will continue. I think that there's some other folks here who could talk a little bit about some of the things that we located at the house at the time that he was arrested, taken back into custody. We do expect to examine whether we can upgrade the charges to aggravated escape in light of the material that they found, which included weapons and drugs. I want to walk you through just real quickly what his criminal history was. In 2019, he was convicted, he pled guilty on a DEA case involving guns and drugs. He was convicted in October 2024 on a 2018 double murder on Mardi Gras Day. That case involved 2 charges of second-degree murder and 2 charges of attempted second-degree murder. Jason Williams' office, I believe, handled all of that, all of those charges at the time. I think virtually the next day, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter for a different case. So he was awaiting sentencing for those matters, and he was scheduled for sentencing in December of 2024 when the judge at the time recused herself, and that triggered a number of proceedings to replace the judge in the case. For reasons that are still unclear, he still had not been sentenced up until May when he escaped. But I think the upshot of that is simply to remind you that this was a very dangerous individual. He is going to face jail time for a very, very long time, possibly, certainly life on the second-degree murders. Those he should have been sentenced to life in prison for because that's the mandatory jail time for that. So he will also get additional time. We expect he'll be prosecuted in Georgia and possibly by the feds. So he's got a lot of trouble and a lot of things to answer to both the state of Louisiana and the state of Georgia. And I'd also point out that this has been extraordinarily taxing. You see all the law enforcement agencies who are up here who have been working diligently to try and get him back into custody. It's been expensive. It has been very scary for a lot of people, for staff at the DA's office, for victims and witnesses who might have been involved in some of these cases that implicated Derek Groves. So, you know, it's a very unsettling thing to have somebody out like this and not know where he is and when we're going to have him back in custody. So today is a very good day.
Darlene?
I would just like to echo what everyone said. It really is a great day that this was a peaceful resolve to this situation. Crime Stoppers was very proud and honored to be a part of this task force. What we saw an outpouring of support and concern and really just wanting to help by our community throughout this entire process. Thousands of tips were received through Crime Stoppers on the individuals who escaped. On Mr. Groves directly, several hundred have been received over this period for him with information. And what I do know, they were all vetted. So I want to thank the community for stepping forward, for sending the tips and the tip that came in regarding this particular location. But I also want to say something that y'all don't normally see in the public, is the people standing behind me, the task force members, the law enforcement agencies who are calling, believe me, I know, in the middle of the night when they got information that they wanted to know more about, working every hour for all of these months. And I'm just so impressed. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart as a nonprofit organization representing civilians. But I hope the public takes the opportunity to thank everyone standing here and their teams for the excellent job that they did. Thank you.
Chief Kirkpatrick.
Right. Thank you, Darlene. I want to share with you a little bit of a background. Last Friday, Director Reese Harper, our PIO that everybody knows over there, we had started an initiative, and we decided that on Fridays, we were going to start putting out kind of like our most wanted on Fridays. And a clever name came up by Director Harper, and we call it Front Burner Friday. So last Friday, Director Harper says to me in the hallway, I think we need to put Grove's name back out in front of the community. And I said, well, great, I think so too. And he grabbed Darlene, Cassandra, and they did their Friday, Front Burner Friday, and put Grove's name out. And it was over this weekend that we did get a tip through Crime Stoppers. So, y'all, Crime Stoppers matters, but most importantly, the community is a true partner to us. So when we speak about team, that includes the community. So we want to thank you very much and appreciate it.
Yes. D.A. Williams.
On behalf of two prosecutors who tried this case with me, we tried it multiple times to get a conviction. On behalf of them, who worked tirelessly to get 12 out of 12 jurors to find him guilty as charged of a double homicidal Mardi Gras. On behalf of the witnesses who were brave enough to come forward. On behalf of the next of kin who still lived in the lower Ninth Ward during all those trials, I just want to say thank you to all of the law enforcement people who stayed on mission, who continued to work together. I know a lot of people in the public thought folks had given up. They thought this was over. But these men and women continued to work together, they stayed on mission, and they delivered for the people of this community. As I said, I tried this case personally. I was in that courtroom, so I was able to get to know the next of kin. And I just want you to all to understand that the children in this family who play sports in that park in the lower Ninth Ward have not been able to go out there during all of this time. Their lives have been shut down out of fear because they didn't know where this man was. And the men and women of these different agencies have given them their lives back. And that is extraordinary. And I was talking to the next of kin a few weeks ago, and she was still trembling. And so I know that today there's a lot of gratitude in that family home that was shot up on that Mardi Gras day. And I also want to just say to the public, thank you. It was your tips. You are one of the most important pieces of this puzzle because you step up when you call in, when you provide that tip, when you show up in court. That's what makes this happen. So I can't thank the public enough for doing its part and making sure that New Orleans is a safer place. And I want to thank God because the fact that someone did not get hurt during this man's time on the lam, and the fact that no law enforcement individuals were injured or hurt, that's just the grace of God. Thank you.
Sheriff Hudson.
Thank you, Colonel. I'm not going to rename all of the agencies that helped here, but they're here up here at this dais, and I'm grateful for them. That's my word for today, just grateful. Thankful for all this help we got. Grateful that they're all back in custody. We look forward to him being sentenced and moving on to prison where he belongs. But again, want to just thank all of our partners and agencies for sharing information, making sure this could happen, and we can all move forward with our lives. I know that the grass is a little greener, the sky a little bluer for everybody today. Thank you.
Okay, this concludes our press conference. I know many of you probably have questions about the fatality crash involving the LSU star, Kyron Lacey. I'll make a quick statement on that. Louisiana State Police stands by their fatality crash investigation. In the course of that investigation, that many troopers across our state are trained reconstructionists as well as crash investigators. We utilized evidence that included eyewitness reporting, several video evidence, as well as physical evidence on the scene. that is normally done, whether it's measurements to determine distance between vehicles or speeds of vehicles and other factors that result in a crash. Once again, we stand by our investigation that we had forwarded over to the District Attorney's Office in Lafourche Parish, and that's where we are with regard to that case. Thank you. I'm sorry. AG Liz will answer any, or make some statements regarding the Karen Lacey case.
So my office has also been looking at those files. We've looked at the files that, and the investigation conducted by state police, and we've also communicated and looked at the files of the district attorney and talked to the district attorney. The upshot is this. There's no dispute that there was a green Charger that was driving at a very high rate of speed, passing cars in a no passing zone at somewhere around 80 miles an hour in a 40 mile an hour zone, and that triggered the remainder of the events. So this case is not, it's not as simple as anybody being able to come out and say that Karen Lacey is innocent and that he was wrongly accused. The police did their job. They investigated the case. They took the statements of multiple witnesses at the scene. I think you can see that from the video. They all said there was a green Charger driving fast in the wrong lane, passing people. This all happened because of that. Now, they didn't stop there. They went back and did their due diligence, and they took those statements down. They then take their case. They made an arrest. That's what they do. They take the facts, they look at the statements that they make, and they determine what they think the appropriate charges are for the facts that they have, and they make an arrest. They then hand it over to the district attorney, and the district attorney then has to look at that file and decide whether to accept those decisions or make a different decision about what charges to accept. In this case, the district attorney also did her due diligence. She looked at everything very carefully. She had her own accident reconstruction person look at all of this. And then she made the decision to give it to a grand jury. That's because it was important to have a 12-person grand jury decide what the appropriate charges to indict him on, if any, would have been. And that's the process that we have, and it's the process that we follow. If, in fact, he had been indicted on the same charges for which he had been arrested, and he might not have been, we'll never know, because he took his own life a couple of days before that process started. So, the grand jury would have made the decision about what the charges were going to be that would have followed the first part of the process. And after that, he still would have had an opportunity to take that case, if he wanted to a jury and have a jury decide whether or not he was guilty, which would have required unanimity. So that's the process that would have been followed. There's nothing that I've seen in anything in the record that indicates that anybody did anything other than their jobs by taking statements from witnesses at the scene and then going and talking to someone who was not who had left the scene but left his phone number, and then putting all that information together, making a decision, handing it over to the DA's office, having the DA's office do their own work, and then decide, we're going to take this to a grand jury because it was a hard case. It was not, clear what charges might be indicted on. It was clear what happened. There was no real dispute over what happened. So there was never any dispute that there was a green Charger that was driving at a very high rate of speed, passing cars in the wrong lane. And if you see the video, as I did, you can see that car move into the other lane and then immediately hear the crash. And the reason that all happens so closely in time is because both vehicles are coming at each other at a high rate of speed. So you can't just look at what one car was doing and not pay attention to what the other cars were doing. They're all driving at each other on a 2-lane highway. So it's simply not accurate, I think, to look at this and say that anybody really didn't. I can see no evidence whatsoever that anybody had anything other than a professional approach to this case, did their jobs the way that they should have, and put it into the process and was seeing it through the process. A grand jury would have ultimately made the decision about what to indict him on, and a jury of his peers would have made a decision, had he been indicted on these charges, they would have made a decision about whether to convict him on them. So that's just what I kind of wanted to say. I wanted to walk you through a little bit of a more careful timeline of the process, not just the video of the facts that you see, but the legal process and how it works and how it was simply cut short because he unfortunately took his own life, which no one is happy about. And then I would say you also need to remember the victim. We lost a victim in this crash who was a veteran, a Marine Corps veteran. I think he also had worked for the U.S. Customs Service for decades. You know, this gentleman lost his life because of this crash, and we shouldn't lose sight of that, too. So it is unfortunate. 2 people lost their lives that shouldn't have lost their lives. Nobody's happy about that, but I see no reason. I've seen nothing in these records that indicate that anybody was doing anything other than the best job that they could to address what was a very difficult situation.
We'll take some questions only related to the capture here, Rose, starting on my left right here.
Good evening. You had said that there were firearms and drugs retrieved. Can you speak more about those? And I'm also curious if anybody was in the house when Rose was apprehended besides him.
So obviously I wasn't there, but the reports that I've had indicate that there were some other individuals that were in the house. We would expect that there will be some charges that will follow for additional individuals who were aiding and abetting Derek Groves, both here in Louisiana and in Georgia. As I appreciate it, there were some individuals at the house. He was captured, I think, hiding in some crawl space or some space maybe that had been constructed where he could hide. As I understand it, they found a pistol, 15 pounds of marijuana in plain sight, and a rifle magazine, not the rifle, but the magazine, the ammunition.
Next. And then as far as, I guess, how long has he been staying at the house? Is that, do you guys know? And what are the evidence, the digital evidence mentioned about the tips?
So, as you know, we use various investigative tools and technology to include Crime Stoppers, and working with the group of professionals to my left and right. We won't tell you exactly how long he's been there, but once we could confirm that that was the location, then we reached out to our law enforcement partners in Atlanta, Georgia, so Atlanta PD, and then, of course, our U.S. Marshals who are here with us, their counterparts there to help with, obviously, apprehension. I'll leave it at that.
Do you know why he was in Atlanta? Did he have help there? And you said he might be facing charges in Georgia as well. Do you know what those charges may be?
Well, the guns and drugs, for starters. Those are Georgia charges because he was in Georgia. Clearly somebody was helping him. I think there were multiple somebodies helping him. I mean, he had a fair amount of assistance, and I think that as the investigation continues, we'll keep trying to determine just how he was getting that kind of assistance and how many people might have been assisting him.
We heard from Groves alone there were hundreds of tips that came in, and there were tips from all over. Can someone talk to how tedious this process was and how critical it was responding to all of those tips that may have come from all over?
Well, as y'all know, October 16th will make 5 months. I mean, that's a long time. 10 fugitives. But as I mentioned in my earlier comments, we never lost hope. We never stopped with the investigation. Although other things have come up and you have to respond as a law enforcement agency to those immediate threats, we always stayed dialed in and focused. It takes a lot of time to follow all leads, and we continued to do that even when none were captured and we were still waiting on Groves. But oftentimes we were just a little too close. As in prior conferences, I would say I'm confident that we're close, and we were. But because, as A.G. Merle stated, they kept getting assistance from family members, friends, and others, and they were always just a little one step ahead. As people move to different states and different cities and different dwellings where you have multi-family homes, there are other risks and things involved. So, as also stated, no one was injured in the course. The public, obviously these 10 fugitives that are now being captured, no law enforcement in the entire process. And for that reason, I think our methodical and professional and very safe process had a great result in the end, now that they're all captured, and we can look back and learn from that. But it just takes time. It takes patience, it takes resilience, and it takes the partnership you see standing alongside of me, both in Louisiana and outside. And that's why our federal partners are so critical, because they have a reach across the country.
And what you just said, is it likely that he was moving from city to city, state to state?
You know, we're really not going to discuss those things, but any fugitive has the opportunity to move in and out of a city, in our case, a parish, or in another state and a county, because they're having assistance. And I often mentioned that in prior conferences over the last few months, that please, you think you're helping your loved one, but you're not. You're putting others in danger, because these men that were on the screen to my right and your left had violent past, and that shows a pattern, and they were judged on their behavior, and we needed to have them back in custody so they could not harm anyone else.
All right, next.
This was a 5-month journey. A lot of people, like you said, doubted y'all's willingness to capture Grove, but y'all did it. What is the message now to other criminals that are out there that y'all are searching for? Other criminals that are looking to escape, what's the message to them?
The message is law enforcement is committed to public safety, and we're resilient, we're professionally trained, and we work together. And because of that, we're a force multiplier. So it doesn't matter if you're local police, sheriff's office, state police, or one of our federal partners, we're all working together. And when we do that, it gives advantage is us, standing right here behind me. And that's the message to them. You have to, when you make bad decisions or you commit crimes, you'll be held accountable. And if you disagree, then you will have, like the AG said, your opportunity to go to court and get an attorney and defend yourself and explain why you did what you did. But actions have consequences, and I think we've made that pretty clear today as to why the 10 men that are on that screen are back in custody.
And I would just add that I don't think, I never heard anybody doubt our commitment to getting them back in custody. I mean, we all were very committed, wholly committed to getting them back in custody. Derek Groves was determined to stay out of sight, and he had some people helping him. Antoine Massey also was able to kind of stay out of sight for a little while. He was a little harder to, hide himself. I think if he showed up in public, he was going to be recognized pretty quickly. Some of these other individuals, I think 2 of them were captured in Houston. 1 of them was captured in Baton Rouge. I mean, they were moving. So they can move. Once they got out, they could go a lot of different places. It was important that we all keep up our commitment to chasing every lead we had. And so you can see we were working with the federal marshals. We're working with everybody that we can. So we were always wholly committed to getting them back in custody as soon as possible.
And how many people did you say were in the house other than Groves?
I don't have a number. All I know is I had the reports to me from law enforcement in Georgia were that there were other individuals in the house.
All right. No, you're good. That's all.
Katie Boyce with CBS News. Thank you for your time. AG Merle, you mentioned earlier that this manhunt has been extremely expensive. How much did it cost?
I really wish I had a total number for you, but I can tell you that, in the early weeks when everybody was out and there was a command post set up, we had just about every law enforcement agency that we could pull in involved out on the street looking for these folks. And that was, time-consuming and expensive for everybody. I can tell you that it was initially probably costing almost $1 million a day. I think that as the kind of, rhythm got into a different phase and we had captured most of them, and we were now looking at some people who were a little harder to detect and more committed and had more help, it changed sort of the nature of the investigation, and it took on a different kind of rhythm. But everybody's continued to work at it, and I know that we do track that information, and I think at some point we'll be able to give you a total.
And a follow-up for Chief Kirkpatrick, if you have a moment. I loved how you mentioned how a local initiative, putting out fugitives on Fridays back on the front burner really helped get this back, some fire under the feet. Had the trail gone cold prior to this initiative? Had you stopped receiving as many tips? Could you describe a little bit about the investigation prior to that initiative rolling out?
Well, I'll mirror what the AG said, as well as the colonel. We continued to do the follow-up on every tip that came in, but some of those tips were not local. They were from other cities, and so because of that, you have other agencies who are taking leads and having to do those types of follow-up investigations. So the fact of the matter is, thanks to the public, we say all the time, we're not interested in your name, we just want your information, and someone came forward, and that helped us. So that's all I can tell you about that. But no, we just kept at it, and everybody kept at it. So whoever's agency or jurisdiction, even out of state, we were pressing on everything that we heard.
And then finally, you talked, Colonel, about, how you kept missing, that
Yeah.
you seemed to be one step ahead. Could you just explain why you think it might have taken so long to find this last fugitive?
Well, I mean, it's no secret. Many things and lessons are online, and even our criminals have those who are helping them, and they have an opportunity to get other phones and other resources, whether it's someone bringing them food or a new location to live or a new phone, smartphone. But social media, I think, is very helpful to us, but at the same time, it moves very quickly. And so when you have information, and as we saw early on in the investigation, they tried to put out some things that were old information, and, of course, many of y'all in the room were wanting to know how long ago or why didn't we get them. Well, it's not that simple. Everything you see online obviously is not true. You don't know the date, the time, the location. You don't know when it was actually put up or when it took place, even though maybe it was uploaded at a certain time. It's different to certain websites. But I think it just shows that we can't underestimate those who want to commit crimes, that many of them have the same knowledge of those who are non-criminals. And I think, again, the advantage is we have all of these agencies, and we have people that are specifically trained in that investigative tools and technology that helps us be one step ahead. And I think today, just to reiterate, it just signifies cooperation, and more importantly, that you're going to get tired, but we're not. And I think we showed that over the last 5 months, regardless of what the cost is. And there is a cost, not just a financial cost, but a mental and physical toll on our men and women in law enforcement. But we weren't going to lose sight of our obligation to public safety and keeping this state safe. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I wanted to add one thing too, just to kind of ask the public, because I think that, Derek Groves is clearly a very dangerous person, and he's been convicted of committing several murders. He's pled guilty to several murders. If he is now back in custody, and if anybody in the public was scared to come forward and give us information that might have related to the escapes or to anything else related to him or any one of these other individuals while he was still out, then I want to encourage them to reach out to Crime Stoppers or to someone else in law enforcement so that we can collect that information from you now, because he is a dangerous individual, and I can understand why people might have been afraid to come forward before now, but we want to reassure the public they are back safely in custody. They will be held at Angola. I think he will end up spending a long time there.
One quick question about the reward. The person called you, are they getting that $50,000 reward that was advertised? Yeah, go ahead.
So the reward currently for this particular case is $30,000 from Crime Stoppers, and then there would be a $20,000 reward available through the FBI. So yes, the total would be $50,000. And I just want to echo one thing. As a nonprofit organization, we talked about the cost of this entire operation. Well, as a nonprofit who has to raise money, I can tell you that it was significant for Crime Stoppers. Significant, because not only did we have the rewards that we paid out 5, this will be 6. But we also had to double staff and the manpowers that we put in. So I think all of that echoes the fact that not only as our organizations took this very seriously, the public did too. And again, we want to thank the ATF who joined with us in our $30,000 reward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Is there anything else? Okay.